Well, it's the 31st of 2014. February is right around the corner, and what have I gotten myself in trouble with now? A piece of vintage audio equipment for your consideration. I've been in the looking around for some better stereo receivers. I've been using a circa 1970s Panasonic stereo receiver. I've actually even yet to do a video on it, and it came with an integrated 8-track player. But I wanted something that, well, was a little less bulky. That thing was an absolute tank, about, well, 2 times the size of this receiver, and was heavy, but took up a lot of room, and it wasted a lot of space with the 8-track player. Where this ends, the 8-track player came out to about right over here, so it really extended quite far and took up a lot of space on my dresser right here, which is where I have my audio equipment. So I wanted to get something a little more compact. And so I came across this used fine. This is actually it's a Kenwood model. It's a KS-4000R, a KS-4000R. It's an AM and FM stereo receiver. And what caught my eye is that it had the FM and AM tuning dial right there, a little tuning indicator, similar to those Pioneer receivers of the 70s that are really sought after and quite pricey. And this thing was quite a good price. It was missing its 2 knobs here for bass and treble, but they're very easy to turn, and you can feel when they notch into place when it's supposed to be dead center. They notch right in. And it's a nice receiver. The lights fortunately work in it. Only thing that I'm a bit concerned about, it's not a huge concern, but you can see how this left area is quite brighter than the right. And either there's one single or 2 bulbs right here that are meant to shine through the entire display, and there's no bulbs on this side, or the bulb on this side is burned out, so I do need to check into that. And I also got this unit because of something interesting. You can see that mic volume and that mic input right there, and this is very interesting. This allows you to use this almost as a bit of a PA announcement system, a store amplifier system. When you have the music on and you bring up the volume of your microphone, it'll fade down the volume of whatever you have on as the input, your phono, your FM, whatever, and it'll fade out the music, but it'll fade in the mic, and it's really nice. It acts just like a PA system. I'll go over that in just a little while. Bass and treble, balance and volume, and then over here it's got tape A input, tape B monitor, tape A and B monitor, AM, FM, and phono. And this caught my attention because it appeared to have 3 inputs for devices, and if you notice, I have a tape deck up here, I've got a CD compact disc changer here, and a turntable right over there. And that's 3 devices. My old receiver only had 2. Regrettably, this receiver only has tape A input, RCA jacks. Tape B uses a DIN plug, which wasn't too common in America, at least. I think it was quite popular, or somewhat popular in the UK in the 60s on reel-to-reel machines and things like that. And moving this beast away, looking on the back here, one nice thing is that it's got a 200 watt max unswitched power supply, a little outlet there that's actually just running my Technics cassette deck. It's got left and right speaker outputs. This only can support 1 pair of stereo speakers. My old receiver could support up to 4, or 2 pairs of, or 4 speakers in total. But I don't really use 4 speakers, I only use a stereo pair. Looking over here, if I can get this flashlight to cooperate, you can see tape B is actually got a DIN plug. And you can even see the way I've tried to get this in frame. This screen on this camera is not making it any better. Let me flip it around. That's a bit better. Maybe you can just make out that DIN plug that's in there. I'm not quite sure. But tape B's input and output is a DIN plug. And so I'm going to have to get some sort of an adapter, but they're not quite cheap. They're about $20 to $30 depending on the model. And the only one I've been able to find are by Bang and Olufsen. That may be a mispronunciation. I do apologize. Tape A's input is just and tape A's input and output is just basic RCA jacks, and then it's got a magnetic phono input. It does not have a ceramic input, so it's not line level. You can't get away like my old receiver by using the aux input and then using the ceramic phono input for a line level source. You can't do that. And interestingly enough, like I said, this uses RCA jacks for the speakers, yet it uses those newer style screw tightening, whatever they call those connections for the antennas. And if I pull this away just a bit more, I don't want to, that was a close one, I don't want this to fall off, but this has the ability to hook up a 300 ohm antenna, and I'm just using just those wires right now. It's not the best, but this receiver does pretty well with static. And this also has the ability to hook up a 75 ohm speaker. You can just see there in between those two wires, and you hook up the center pin of your coax cable to that leftmost screw terminal, and then the bottom one is the ground, which you hook up the shield to. This also, if you look very carefully, you may be able to make out the words AM right there. And that terminal right there, wow, this flashlight's not working out today, but there's a connector right there, in the very dead center of your screen, right next to that white RCA jack. There's a terminal for an AM antenna. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I hook up an external AM antenna on here. Although I must say that this does very well with AM. It gets a lot of stations that I wasn't able to get in the past. And you can look over there. This is a, come on, this thing doesn't want to work today. It's a KS-4000R by Kenwood, 55 watts, manufactured by Trio Kenwood Corporation, and then that's the serial number. And one thing I neglected to mention is that this unit actually has a recessed back. The wood cabinet extends about 1.25 inches past the actual end of the unit, and that allows you to tuck in all those wires, but yet this unit sits flush with the wall, so you don't see all those ugly wires. This also has the loudness switch, very infamous loudness switch that practically all 1970s receivers came with, and it does add a bit of a much needed boost if you have cheaper speakers, or if you just want to get that real radio sound, especially on material that perhaps isn't very powerful in the upper and lower frequency ranges. That boosts it up a bit. Okay, so let's do a little demo now of this. I have this on to access FM. We pop that on. Yep. And this scared me before because when I first got this unit, I tried putting up, you could see that's as loud as it can go. That's all you hear. That's because the mic input is turned on. And tape B is on as well. I don't want to put it up too loud. You can hear the difference though with loudness off. Listen. This camera may not be picking it up, but it does add a significant boost in the audio. And AM, put that on as well. This is a station. Turn that treble down all the way. This was a station I was never able to receive on practically any radio except a car radio. It is about 50 to 60, probably even further, 70 miles away. It's an AM station that plays all oldies music, 60s and 70s mostly. And they really play some interesting stuff. The daytime reception is actually surprisingly, this isn't typical with AM, the reception is much better in the nighttime hours. There are other stations that are cutting through and are interfering with this station, so it creates a bit of that high-pitched whine that's really noticeable if you turn up the treble, hear it. But it's just nice to be able to receive this. My old receiver was just, it couldn't get anything except the powerful stations. Another interesting story, and I'll try to keep it short, is this turntable is a USB turntable, surprisingly. And this is the Phono. This also has RCA jacks out. It has a USB out and RCA jacks out for hooking it up to a receiver. The USB input goes to my computer so I can digitize my vinyl, and the RCA jacks go to my receiver so I can listen on speakers. And there's a real nasty hum on AM. I was really afraid one of the capacitors in the AM circuit or something like that was really past its prime. It was a very loud hum, a whine, and was unlistenable. It wasn't even that, it was extremely present and noticeable. I unplugged the USB port that was in the back of this turntable. The whine was non-existent. So something is up with that USB cord. It goes to my keyboard, the keyboard hub on my computer, and that power supply on my desktop, that's just a Dell Inspiron, is extremely noisy for some reason. Puts out a lot of noise, a lot of interference. If you have an audio cable that's right next to it, you can pick up the little clicks and pops of it doing its thing, so quite annoying. But now it comes in fine, and I just have to resolve myself to unplugging that USB cord when I'm not digitizing vinyl so I can listen to AM fine. Unfortunately, this receiver does not have an FM mono switch, so you are forced to be forced into submission of stereo hiss, which drives me a bit bonkers. It's not that noticeable. This receiver does do a bit better in terms of cutting out that hiss, but this station, of course, decided about a year and a half ago to add an HD sub-channel, which really degrades their signal. It practically makes it unlistenable in the fringe areas and even within the not fringe areas, for lack of a better term. To demonstrate the micro volume PA system setup you can use this for, turn up the volume. Now notice when I crank up the mic input, the volume is still present. You can still hear the music quietly, but the mic input takes up precedence, which is really nice for using this as a bit of a PA system. A little odd curiosity about this is that if you switch between AM, FM, or any of the other push buttons, well, that actually push it out and disengage, the FM button does not sit flush with the others. You have to push it in just ever so slightly, and it pops back in. I'm not sure what that's all about, but it's not a major problem. Okay, we went over AM, FM. Let's try and do a little test of the phono input. Here's a 45. This is MAM Records, Gilbert O'Sullivan, Ooh Baby. This is from 1973. Let's do a little test here, shall we? Good song, actually. Very catchy. The B-side's not that great, but the A-side, that song's pretty good. Now, I also neglected to mention that this little tuning indicator actually does not work. It's completely frozen like that, unfortunately, and it's really not worth the work trying to get that thing working again. I'll end up breaking something in the process, so it's not a huge problem, and I'm pretty good with tuning in the frequency, and I just usually keep playing with it anyway, just to get the best signal. Oh yeah, let's demonstrate the tape input, shall we? And just to be fair, I'm playing a new tape. I could have chosen a lot older tape, but I wanted to give this kind of an accurate representation of the sound, because, well, playing a 1970s tape with no Dolby B noise reduction kind of begs the question, you know, why are you even using that as a sound comparison, because the quality is so bad. So let's just fast forward this to some music. Just engage tape monitor. Yeah, that's the Goo Goo Dolls, Dizzy Up the Girl. So that's just a little demonstration of the tape. Let me rewind that. I actually have it on CD as well. And I do have this compact disc changer, but unfortunately I have not a way to hook it up to my receiver as of right now, unless I get that $30 adapter. So, for now, it'll wait. I don't listen to CDs too much. Most of my music's on compact cassettes and vinyl anyway, so It makes no difference. Curiously, this also indicates something of dubbing capability, and you can push in both of these buttons, and I'm assuming that's how you dub one tape to another, although I'm not quite sure. And of course you have to have a cassette deck or a reel-to-reel that's got a DIN plug on it, which I do not. This also has an FM stereo light, something that actually is nice to have, and it does work. It's not burned out. This is probably one of those very early versions of LEDs. Nice and bright, it's not burned out. So there we have it, the vintage 1970s Kenwood KS-4000R AM/FM stereo receiver for your viewing pleasure. Hope you enjoyed this video, and well, if you did, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and do stay tuned.